So for those who've just joined, welcome, thank you. We will get going now. So let's get that first slide up. So the big question really is, what is personalisation? I've noticed actually since even publishing the date for this personalisation webinar, there've been quite a few publications and content posted on LinkedIn around personalisation. It seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it's something that's always been important within a learning management system, and in fact really any online system that is used by a variety of users. So I personally define personalisation into two categories: items or content, parts of the system that are personalised, so customised for the individual, and items, contents, and parts of the system which are personalisable by the individual. I should say now, apologies to anyone in the US, you're going to see personalised with an S throughout. You'll have to put up with me in my UK English throughout it. I hope it doesn't offend. So in terms of personalised content or items and items for the individual, certainly within Totara Learn, but across many other systems, that would be items, so interactions or messages sent directly to the system. And by interactions, I mean things like the way that the users view and access learning, access and view their learning items, and generally how they use the system. This might be things like accessing or receiving reports, setting personal goals, updating their learning plans. We can also personalise navigation and display, and I'll talk a little bit about that in more detail in some following slides, as well as their learning journey, rewards and awards, and offering a tailored view and filtered view of content. And by content, I guess I mean courses, programs, certifications, as well as individual learning items within courses. In terms of personalisable content and items, so customised by the individual, that includes interactions as well. Users will want to potentially change the way that they interact or use a system. A lot of systems have these different options for different types of users. Separate but related would be different settings and preferences and how you use the system or how the system contacts you, for example. The profile information that you offer on top of the mandatory information you must provide to log in. Display and potentially group and audience membership. This kind of sits within across personalised and personalisable, but of course there are the options of joining a group or audience optionally as for yourself by your own choice. So why is personalisation important? So primarily it offers a sense of ownership over a user's learning and development environment. And that ownership will then foster a degree of engagement and empowerment for that learner, ultimately hopefully driving their success within their courses and the learning items that they're completing, but as within the company or within their school or any area that they're using the LMS. It provides a tailored learning experience, which allows users and learners to find the right and best learning at the right time. It allows users to interact with the system in line with their personal preferences. So systems need to accommodate different habits, different technical abilities, accessibility requirements, habits for using systems, personalities, personal foibles. We all do things in a certain way, and we want to be able to tailor the systems to accommodate that. And finally, it presents designs and layouts that resonate with the users. This might be where Totara Learn is integrated with another system and they have a fairly seamless connection between those two systems. It may be that they're used to systems or websites that look a certain way. So they have more of a seamless, more familiar and potentially less scary user experience with a site that looks like the other systems that they're used to. I mean, we're all aware that when you first access an LMS, it can be a little intimidating in terms of maybe you've just started an organization, you're onboarding, there's a lot for you to take in and there's a lot for you to do. And personalisation helps reduce that anxiety, hopefully. Overall, it's about engaging learners and being able to adapt to evolving learning requirements, their wants and their needs. So I'm going to go through some examples and ideas for how you can add personalisation to your Totara Learn site. Now, dashboards is probably one of the easiest and most effective tools for introducing personalisation. And this will be a no-brainer for many experienced Totara Learn users and administrators. Some things that you may not realise is that you can add any number of dashboards as you like. It's important to add navigation between those dashboards, and I'll flick over to my local site in just a second. But there's a number of personalised blocks and personalisable blocks within dashboards, such as the current learning block, which you see just in fact on the screenshot, last course accessed, tasks and alerts, and things like latest badges, as you see here. So users can also, if you allow them to, and they can by default, personalize or customize their own dashboards themselves, again allowing them that control and empowerment to take responsibility for their learning in their environment. And of course, dashboards can be assigned by audience, so you can have multiple dashboards throughout the site, and you can therefore assign lots of different types of dashboards to different users appropriate to their different roles or responsibilities or interests. So let me now do what I promised and flick over to my, onto my, local site. Now this is just a local installation, nothing particularly special about it. There's just lots of content and I know where everything is. There's no theme applied, so do use your imagination that it looks absolutely gorgeous. So here I've got a number of dashboards that I have set up and have access to here. I'm noting I am logged in as an administration user, but that I'm still assigned to these dashboards via an audience. And here I have the dashboards block, excuse me, and I have access to a range of different dashboards. So this one was originally designed for first aid users. So there's a range of different first aid certificates and resources available to them. This dashboard here just leverages one large rotating image for using the featured links block. And you can have, in this case, I just enjoyed how recursive this was. It's a dashboard of all the dashboards. But you can get fairly imaginative. There are some great examples of customized dashboards or landing pages in the Totara demo site. And if you log in using Learner and Manager and Trainer, for example, you see quite a different view. So I encourage you, if you've not seen that before, to drop into the Totara demo site. So that's demo.totaralearning.com. Right, now back to the presentation. Next on the list, excuse me, navigation and appearance. So there are a range of different types of navigation and appearance options, or customizable and personalizable options within Totara Learn. The main menu, you can add custom items and rules for individuals who belong to different audiences or have different logins or roles within the system. You can adjust your range of blocks, such as the HTML block, to be only visible to certain types of users based on their role. Featured links works in the same way. And of course, you can, in theory, have multiple themes installed and have those applied at the different contexts which are available. So those contexts mean that you can have, in theory, a theme at the site level, at category level, at course level, and the user level. You, of course, need to have those themes designed, but if you have a central or master theme at the system level, then you can have variations of those applied for different contexts like category or course or user. Now I'm going to flip back to my local site and just show you what that really means in practice. This is a little bit small, so let's zoom in a bit. Okay, before I launch into this, Matt, no questions? Okay. He shook his head, I'm not a mind reader. So in terms of appearance in this main menu area, if I go to navigation, in the navigation block, I've got two areas we've been talking about today, dashboards and main menu. And I created a custom menu example here before the session, just to show that you can add these items. So home dashboard record of learning aligns with what we see along this page here. And I can go into edit this main menu item, select use custom access rules, and this tab access comes available.
Which version of Totara?
Oh yeah, this is version 12 of Totara, just for anyone who's curious. So under this access tab, I've got a range of options, so I can restrict the view of that custom menu example item by their role or access rights, by audience or audiences, as well as a range of preset rules. And these can be an any or all aggregation, so you can have a combination of all of these items and items within each of these options, which means you can have some fairly sophisticated access rules. An example might be someone who is logged in as a guest sees different navigation and perhaps sends an individual to your website with more information, or to a specific catalogue where sample courses can be viewed. Entirely up to you, but there's lots of options there around a personalised experience. Any questions, Matt?
There are no questions coming.
Okay.
Feel free to ask any questions at any time.
Let me get my coughing out the way. Excuse me, sorry for everyone, I'm coughing down the line. Now, this means that for this main menu and in dashboards, you can have quite different navigation for different groups and types of users. So you may have internal or external users, so supporting more of an extended enterprise model. And you can push that beyond just learners and have different navigations for managers, trainers, administrators, maybe shortcuts to an area for just administrators, entirely up to you. Basically different keystrokes for different folks, really. Now, another item here, and not everyone in my experience knows about this, but if I turn editing on, then I can actually edit the visibility of featured links blocks at quite a granular level. So if I go into edit an individual tile and go to visibility, I see quite a similar interface as I did within the main menu area, and I can assign access to view a specific tile within a featured links block to different types of users. So at the moment, this was set to user who is logged into as a guest, but in fact, I'm going to remove that, make this particular block visible to all, save changes, and now we have the traditional honey badger navigation point that we see across most of our screenshots within the system. If I turn anything off just to make that a little bit clearer, now we have that additional featured links. In reality, you'd probably have it the other way around, where you have a featured links tile, which you then restrict access to, rather than allow access to. Again, if you're using this by something like audiences, because audiences have so many different audience rules and different options around building those set and dynamic audiences, you can define really at a very granular and specific level who can see what in terms of these navigation items and the content within these navigation type blocks, like the featured links block. Right, back to the old switcheroo and system level changes. Now there's a lot to focus on here. There's a lot of items. Some of them are quite detailed. So things like the event monitoring rules, I'm going to give you a quick example of those, but it's quite a complicated area. And I would encourage you instead to have a look at the help documentation and work through it and just experiment yourselves. But I'll give you a rough overview of event monitoring, which in my opinion is a very powerful and somewhat underutilized piece of functionality, because it's sitting there hiding a little bit within the site administration area. So the Help documentation and the Academy courses will give you a lot more information around things like the custom roles and language packs and audiences in the course catalogue. So I'll move fairly quickly over that so we can cover all the content and slides for today. So one thing you can do, of course, is create custom roles or permissions. And at the last count, it was around 550 to 600 different capabilities within the system. I haven't done a count for a while because it's a little bit of a slow process, but that means that you can, at a very, very granular level, create access rights or roles that will allow users to do or not to do certain things across the site, so those capabilities. If anyone here is new to Totara or a little bit less experience with using the system, I do encourage you to go into the Totara Academy. There is a great course on custom roles, and as much hand waving as I can do via a webinar, there's a really great diagram and voiceover which explains how different roles and permissions work and how they can be applied and overridden at different contexts within the site. Basically, if you can get roles and understand roles, you're set for everything else. It's all downhill from there. Now, customized language packs, of course, you can install a number of different language packs, but you can also customize those locally. So if you're working with an organization, or you are an organization that doesn't use the word courses, for example, to describe your content, and perhaps you use topics or modules or training items, you can go into your language pack or packs, depending on how many you use in your site, and make those changes locally. So you can search for all the different instances of the word course or courses and make those changes. Now that's going to take a little while because of the term courses is throughout the system, but there might be something more specific like programs or certifications or one particular item that doesn't quite sit with the rest of the organization that you can change. Now, something that some people don't realize is that it's not just the words on screen and the buttons and the text that you can change when you customize a language pack. You can in fact change the contextual help. So those little help icons next to areas in the site, you can customize their contextual help. And I know of organizations that add a little extra to the contextual help to make it applicable to their organization, or perhaps even put in the email address of someone that might be able to help you with that particular piece of functionality. I've talked about audiences. Audiences kind of underpin a lot of both automation and personalization within the system, within Totara Learn, and I could go on it for quite some time. What I would say around audiences, again, there's a great Academy course and some great help documentation, and in fact recently the documentation team posted a new area of the help docs under audiences to describe all the different audience rules that are available, and that is extremely helpful page because it gives you some ideas about how they can be used. So, for example, authentication type is a great rule. You may not think of so immediately, but you can have different audiences for people who have self-registered versus people that maybe are authenticated from your internal system. So again, supporting that extended enterprise model and being able to support a different learner journey for people that are external users versus internal users. Now, I'm going to skip over once more. Back to my site, and I'm going to talk, as promised, about the event monitoring rules. This is probably as technical as this session's going to get. If you do have any questions on event monitoring after this, I think I, some time ago, wrote a blog, Totara blog post on some ideas to use event monitoring, and of course the help documentation is excellent. Before I launch in, is there anything in the chat?
Just got one question about whether or not it's possible to personalize the theme of the site for particular users.
Yes, you can, kind of. So to set a user theme, this is currently because we are looking at how we can assign this on a larger scale as part of the multi-tenancy work that we're looking at. As within a user's profile, in fact, I'll just use my admin menu here. If user themes are switched on, under advanced user, then I can select my theme in this area here. So it just needs to be switched on. So if I go to just do a search for user theme, we've done this before. If I allow that, then when I go into my profile, or an individual goes into their profile, they're able to select their preferred theme. So as I say, this is at the moment, it's on a per user basis, and a user can change it themselves if you so wish, or you can set it so it's locked. And we are looking in terms of roadmap items in the future, how we might be able to assign that, I guess, in bulk.
So from 12 onwards, to have a personalised one, or can you do that in 11? I can't remember.
You can do that in 11. In fact, I think even going back further into the recesses of time, you can, I think, probably even some of the versions in the 2s that you could have user themes. And likewise, you can turn on category themes and course themes. It's in the advanced features, but I always cheat and just do a search for it, and that you can then quickly turn it on and off. And note that some people have found when they have very, very big installations and a lot of users and a lot of data, it's worth just doing a test in terms of if adding multiple themes and assigning them different contexts could potentially, in some rare cases, affect performance. So it's worth doing a quick check on that before you enable it. It may or may not be an issue. Right, security. Sorry, server. So under server is where we will find this event monitoring. And what that allows you to do is set up basically alerts for certain events that happen at both the site level and the course level. So you set up these monitoring roles, and then later I'll show you that as an individual, capabilities and custom roles taken into account can subscribe to those rules, which means you can get a notification alerting you to every time something happens, a specific something happens, and it could be at the site level or within a course. So the applications of this are, I wouldn't say limitless, but near enough. So for example, if I add a new rule, I'll just give it a quick name. I'm going to call it Matt because you're right here. And then I can choose from the different areas to monitor. So it goes across most of the different modules. I could keep scrolling, and there's a range. And it's worth having a bit of a pick through and seeing what your options are. But I, in preparation for this, know that I want to go to core and then go to maybe badge awarded, for example. And maybe this badge sits at the site level, maybe it sits at the course level, but maybe it's a badge that's really difficult to collect. So maybe it's completion of a very long, complicated program, or several programs, or several courses. Maybe it's an activity that's particularly difficult. And what I want to do here is let course managers and trainers be alerted that an individual has been awarded this badge, so that they can send a personalised direct message to the individual and say, well done, you've collected that badge, or you've completed this course, or all the different range of items. And that notification has a range of placeholders, and you can see the range of placeholders using the contextual help. And once you've created that, save changes. And now we've got this event rule called Matt. And as an individual, depending on my access rights, I can then go into my profile area. And under my preferences, I've got this miscellaneous area. And if event monitoring is turned on, I should say that this is something you need to switch on. I can then look at all the rules that are available. And my options here will be determined by my access rights, because I'm admin, I can see everything. But perhaps for a particular course, I really don't know which one to pick. There's just so many options. We'll say this particular course called Course Catalogue. Then I can say I want to subscribe to the rule where the individual is awarded a badge. And now I'm subscribed. So I'll get a message and noted that you can change the threshold for how often you hear about this. So you might want to basically create a digest rather than every minute something's done. You might want to have it like every hour, and you may even want to have several notifications to remind you. Entirely up to you. So there's lots of different options within the event monitoring. Right, to push on. Back to my presentation and start that back up again. Account and profile information. Now, you saw just a moment ago that I brought up the profile pages and my preferences, and there's a long list of different options that you can change as both an administrator and a general learner in terms of the preferences. This is really a mix of your user information as well as those interactions that I was talking about at the start of the presentation. So I strongly recommend the use of custom user profile fields. So you can add any number of these custom profile fields. You can do that under the courses area. I'll flip over to my local site in just a moment to show you exactly where. But when you create these custom user fields, they're added to an individual's profile. They can be optional or mandatory fields. But they can be a mix of things that are relevant to a specific organization. So maybe they have a thing called domain ID or employee reference, or it could be the ability to self-select or add information that then is a rule for a dynamic audience. And this boils down to something that the internet likes to call adaptive hypermedia, which is essentially a fancy word for the more information that a user provides about themselves, the more tailored and personalized the system can be for them. So if they enter in a bunch of voluntary information, you can use those to pull in to a dynamic audience and give them better recommendations and filter the catalog in a different way and present them different dashboards. So you might want to, in fact, award individuals open badges for completing these profile fields, so to encourage them to complete them, ultimately benefiting them as well as yourselves, having a better delivery of content and more personalized and personalizable experience for the individual. So I did promise I'd show you where to do these user profile fields. So under, did I say courses? I mean users. Under users, it's here under user profile fields. And you can see a few examples that I've set here. And you can create different sections that they sit under. This is a self-select audience, so people can tick this item within the user profile field and therefore be added to a particular audience, therefore have different navigation, different dashboards, different course filters in the catalogue. All right, do we have any questions, Matt?
We have one question.
Oh, wow, excellent.
It's a lively. So Joanne asks, could you be alerted of a new user manually created in the system?
Probably. Let me have a quick look if I can bring it up. So we'll go to server. This is a good refresher. Event monitoring, and because these items sit within different events. Oops, it's not a great interface. Come on, scroll. This is very fast, I'm afraid. I think it will be under core. Oh yes, look, user created. I don't think you can specify to the detail of how they were created, but if it was any way that you created, yes, you could in fact subscribe to that.
Yeah.
So it's a yes. Thank goodness I found it so quickly. All right. And we're very near the end. Of course, there's a range of personalized and personalizable content within courses as well. So there's a range of blocks. There's the recent activity block, which if you add to courses, when an individual logs into that course, they'll see what's changed since they last logged in, which is often very helpful. There's the latest badges block, so they can see which badges have been issued. And there's the course completion status block, so an individual can see what they need to do to complete their course. There is subscription to event monitoring, which we've talked about. and personalised activity and course recommendations. So this is a screenshot of something I put together, and this is using a combination of course completion or course activity completion settings and the restrict access functionality. And I've got a webinar in a couple of months' time where I'm talking about adaptive learning, and that really focuses on setting those completions criteria for activities and using the restrict access or conditional access functionality to provide a very adaptive and customized learning journey for every individual working through a course. And this is really no different. So in this case, this is where the individual has under their profile selected that they're part of the management program, they've achieved a certain score within the course, they have a particular role or job position through the hierarchies, and they've finished the course evaluation. And then there's a second one here is around process improvement. You can get quite detailed. I encourage you to add a link to the course in this label here. This is using the label functionality, I should say, so the user can go straight into it and know what they need to do next. There's also being able to issue badges for soft skills. So maybe using the event monitoring, maybe just being subscribed to forums. You can notice when learners help other learners or are particularly active within the course, and you can award them with maybe a communication badge and just show that you're monitoring, and well, not monitoring, that's a terrible word, you're engaged in their learning, and awarding them for good soft skills and collaborative behaviour within the course, and that will ultimately engage the learner to try and strengthen and demonstrate those soft skills more frequently. Now, message personalisation. I showed you quickly the event monitoring as an example with a couple of placeholders, but throughout the system, there's a range of different messages that you can send, both manually and automated messages within the system. So things like programs and certifications, seminar notifications, there's the feedback reminders, custom enrollment welcome messages, and participant messages. I'm going to show a couple of examples. So I'll jump into my local site, and I will go into Design Thinking for Innovation. And here we have, I'll go into feedback first. So this is another one of those underutilized pieces of functionality. If you have a feedback activity, so like a survey and evaluation, you can use this reminder tool to request people to complete a particular feedback activity based on maybe completing the course or completing another activity, and send them a reminder to complete that feedback. And this is all personalizable in terms of the individual invitation, the message, and again, these variables or placeholders can be scattered throughout the message and changed. And as always, within the contextual help, you see all the different fields that you can use, as well as a reminder. And if they're really not paying any attention to you, you can escalate and send it to their manager potentially as well. Also within this course, I've got a people block right at the bottom here. And this gives you access to a participant list, so everyone who's enrolled in it. And this also, you can select specific individuals, and maybe I want to sort this by people that have never accessed the course. So I might select all and exclude myself, an example learner, and maybe send them a message through this interface to perhaps prompt them or poke them or demand even that they join the course. Again, it's not so much about monitoring, but being engaged in their learning and sending them individual messages. And maybe, for example, I know that Jane Learner, perhaps she enrolled and is on maternity leave, so I can remove Jane from that list and then still send a message. Now, this doesn't have placeholders, but it has an HTML editor, so you can do some exciting stuff in there, you know, embed images, embed media as you like. And of course, you can preview before you send it and send it as well. And then within seminars as well, in addition to the automated messages. There's also a range of, let's see if I can do it here. No, not in there. Messages that you can send to attendees of events. So these are events that have passed. If I go into the attendees area, I can message users, and we can see that there are users with different statuses, and I can send them different messages, different recipients, and send them a personalized message to say, you know, thank you for fully attending, appreciate you showing up, or hey, you left halfway through, I know, I was paying attention, and maybe encourage them to rebook for another session. So it's important to use, you know, all of the tools available to you in terms of messaging, being able to help users to complete and to be engaged in their course, and messaging them is vital to their success. Any questions? No. Is anyone still out there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Right. And finally, back to my, here we go. It's important to stress that personalisation is not just for learners. We want to create a personalised environment for managers, for trainers, administrators, any other type of user in the site. And that includes taking advantage of those blocks like the tasks and alerts, as well as more specific things aimed at managers like the statistics block or the team block. That might include for trainers, personalised reports that you've scheduled, or dashboards for or reports for seminar attendance. Administrators, similar sort of things, like scheduled reports or saved reports, graphs, whatever you like. So really, the bottom line is that you want to encourage, engage, empower and excite your learners. In fact, beyond that, your users generally. An engaged admin is a good admin. And have the system adapt to their evolving learning requirements at both the user level and, of course, at the organisational level. And personalisation helps facilitate that. Of course, having an engaged workforce also helps, but these can certainly make using a learning management system more of a pleasure than a chore for many users. And that's me for today. Were there any further questions anyone would like to post? If not, hopefully my hems and coughs didn't drive people away. And I would say thank you so much for listening. Those live and those who are listening to this after the fact, do appreciate your attendance.